Welcome back to the Lines College Football Podcast. I'm Brett Gibbons with TheLines.com, and as always, I'm joined by the one and only Kelley Ford. Kelley, welcome back. We have action. The calendar has turned. How are you feeling?
I'm feeling great, Brett. You mentioned it. We have Maction, so you know it's that time of year, and it is November. This is the money time. This is when everything comes to a head for college football teams. It's the most exciting month of the year, in my opinion, capped off with, of course, rivalry week on Thanksgiving weekend. So we are still a couple weeks away from that, and there's a lot of big games to get to before then, but this is my favorite. College football is my favorite sport. The fall then is my favorite time of year. This is my favorite month, Brett, within that time frame, just because it feels like the stakes are raised. And I know regular season is paramount for both you and me. This is a regular season sport, but the implications that these regular season games have, plus all the rivalry aspects that we get, makes this month just something else. It snowed, Brett, during some action. I know you were there. I was trick-or-treating with the kids. It snowed on us too. So a little bit less enjoyable environment for that snow. But dude, when it starts snowing during college football games, there's just no better feeling. I love it, Brett. I can't wait.
Yeah, I'm with you. I'm starting to get the tingles for bowl season because I do love bowl season, but bowl season means the regular season is over, and that is sad for me. So I agree. This is probably college football's best month, and a little bit of a shameless plug. Go ahead and follow me on Twitter at Road to CFB because I will be going to more Maction games since I live in the area. And also, don't forget to follow at The Lines US on Twitter. Kelley, your work can be found at K Ford Ratings. And we'll be here every single week for the remainder of the college football season, breaking down weeknight slates like we are here, as well as the Saturday slates. And if you're looking for the Action Rundown, I know we're recording here Wednesday. We got some Wednesday games. You can find those. I did record those. Those are up. But we're here to talk what I think is maybe the best slate of Thursday and Friday games since maybe week one. But I don't really count week one because they split that intentionally. This is just a great weeknight slate. And I want to start off in the Big 12. TCU is on the road at Texas Tech. The home team Red Raiders are actually 3-point favorites. I had to double check that one to make sure I was getting it right. Kind of a surprising line maybe. We'll dive into it. And this game has an over-under of 59.5 points. It kicks off Thursday night at 7 p.m. Eastern on FS1. Texas Tech quarterback Baron Morton, he's questionable for the game, a little bit dinged up. Tech is coming off of not a full bye because they're playing on Thursday, but he's had some extra time to rest and recover and hopefully get out there. He has not been great. He's not been bad, but he's not been great. 57% completion, 5 turnover-worthy throws, but 8 touchdowns, only 2 picks. He did take over week 4 as a starter when Tyler Shuck went down like he did last year, and this is just a third year in a row, I think, for Texas Tech where they're dealing with a lot of injuries to their quarterback room. Running back Taj Brooks, he's been the engine for this offense so far. He's gone over 100 yards in 5 of his last 6 games. The only time that he didn't is when he went for 98 yards against Kansas State. And come on, guys, couldn't we give him one more carry to break the 100? He's also scored in 4 straight games on the ground. He goes against the TCU defense that just gave up in their last game 343 yards on the ground to Kansas State in that prolific rushing offense. Only Arkansas nationally has given up more 20-plus yard plays this year than TCU. I think we're far enough away from that wild back-and-forth Colorado game to know that it's no longer an anomaly. It's no longer skewed. They just give up explosive plays. That's just what this TCU defense does. But a big deal for the Horned Frogs. Linebacker Johnny Hodges is expected to return. He did return to practice this week. He's their defensive captain. He's their best run stopper by far. Without him, this defense is absolutely not the same. And I'm not going to say he would have held Kansas State to 150 yards, but him being out was a big reason why Kansas State was able to go for almost 350. TCU, though, as a team, incredibly inconsistent. Almost without any exception, they just beat really bad teams and then lose to everybody else. SMU may be an exception, but SMU's improved a lot. And to be honest, if that game was played again today, I don't know how it would go, even in Fort Worth. But of course, that's playing the what-if game. Their other wins on their slate, Houston, BYU, and Nichols. So not exactly a murderer's row of wins. I'm interested what the resume rankings would be in your estimation. Really quick, quarterback Josh Hoover had a big game in his starting debut against BYU, but he's thrown the ball 101 times in 2 games, and to me, that's absolutely unacceptable. What are we doing, guys? It results in a big win over BYU. That's fine. But then you got crushed 41-3 to Kansas State. And I'm not saying like, it's a negative game strip, so of course you're going to throw the ball more, but run the ball a little bit, will you? Your offense wasn't getting anything going. You have this new guy coming in, throwing way too many times. He was also pressured 17 times against Kansas State. Texas Tech, pretty decent pass rush made up of veterans and transfers. And the wide receivers for Hoover have 9 drops in 2.5 games. That will happen when you change quarterbacks, but it's not like you change it handedness. So the receivers need to pick it up.
Brett, just to answer your question, TCU number 53 and the most deserving, Texas Tech number 55. So both these teams sitting in the 50s with regard to deservedness, which, if it puts it in perspective, they're actually both behind 2 and 6 Arkansas, who's at number 51.
Oh, no.
So it's not great from that regard. But, Brett, this game has a watchability score of 8.2. It's a top 10 game of the week for me, and I agree with you. This could be, one of, if not the best, midweek slates of games we've had since that extended week 1, which, as you said, is kind of its own thing and doesn't really count because of how they kind of schedule week 1 every single year. I have this game as a pick'em. It's a 51% win expectancy for Texas Tech. There is no denying it. And I kind of touched on it with the most deserving rankings, though. Both these teams are having really terribly disappointing seasons. In the preseason, my numbers gave TCU a 95% chance to go bowling. Texas Tech had an 88% chance to win 6 games. Now, Brett, TCU's chances are down to just 59%. Texas Tech all the way down to just 17% chance to go bowling. At 4-4, TCU has 2.1 fewer wins than my preseason realistic expectations projected through week 9. And at 3-5, Texas Tech has 2.3 fewer wins than projected. Both of these, Brett, rank in the bottom 10 in all of FBS with regard to achievement with win-loss record relative to expected in the preseason. So both these teams' offenses are at season lows right now, Brett. TCU at 34, Texas Tech at 41. The defense is ranked number 38 and number 42, respectively. So that's how you're getting a pick 'em here. These units are pretty comparable on both sides. And the reason it has a decent watchability score, 8.2, I'd say that's better than decent, is because these are still quality teams, even if their records aren't necessarily reflecting that. So by my numbers, TCU is the slightly better team. They have the slight advantage on both sides of the ball. But they still end up with just a 49% win expectancy because this game is in Lubbock. So that home field, to me, is what could end up making the difference in this game. And in my opinion, maybe why we've got the line that we do here from Vegas. Both these teams were off last week. And this is a big swing game with regard to bowl eligibility, Brett. So I expect both sides really to be pulling out all the stops in this one. Bottom line, I have this game as a pick'em with the smallest of leans towards the Red Raiders at home.
Yeah, you won't catch me laying the points with Texas Tech at home, that's for sure. And honestly, I don't know if I'm taking the points with TCU either. They're just too darn inconsistent. I don't trust their offensive play calling. I don't trust their offense, but Texas Tech is the less healthy team. And just, like you said, TCU is probably the better team. But do I trust them to go into Lubbock, which by all accounts is a very, very difficult place to play. And this is a rivalry. It is. It may not be the biggest rivalry, but it sure is one. So I went with a play on the total. I'm actually going to play under 59.5 points in this game. I don't believe in either offense, or at least their ability to be all that consistent. And despite running the 3rd fastest offense in the country, TCU, they're only 54th in points per drive and 47th in success rate. That just tells you the inconsistencies there. TCU has also been held to 21 or fewer points in 3 of their last 4 when they played competent defenses, BYU being the lone exception to that. So this offense also isn't getting going, and that was with Chandler Morris and Josh Hoover. So I've seen both sides. Texas Tech has the 3rd most turnovers in the country in their last 3 games. They get stuffed by any defense that has a slight pulse. BYU, they only just scored 14 points against them. That's not a good look. They only scored 21 against Kansas State and 13 against West Virginia. So this feels like it's priced like they're expecting this old school Big 12 shootout, and they looked at the pace and said, wow, these offenses like to run fast, which they do, but they're not very successful at it. So I don't believe that's what we have on here. Under 59.5 points is the play for me. Moving forward to the Sun Belt, we have South Alabama, big one here. Really, I'm glad that this one is on a weeknight so it can get its proper attention. South Alabama on the road at Troy. The Trojans are 5.5-point home favorites, and this game carries an over-under 45.5 points. Kicks off Thursday night at 7:30 p.m. Eastern on ESPN2. Both South Alabama and the under took money this one midweek, and there's a big reason why South Alabama took the money. Quarterback Carter Bradley was announced to have returned to practice and is likely to play this week. It's a really big deal for the Jags. The big matchup I'm watching for here, LaDamian Webb, the running back for South Alabama against Troy's run defense. Troy's 14th in rush EPA and 34th in success rate, so they're giving up more reasonable chunk yards and not as many explosives. Webb is the national co-leader in touchdowns scored with 13. How about that? 100. He's gone for over 100 rushing yards in 3 of 4 games. And, of course, the one exception, just like we talked about Taj Brooks, was 96 yards against Louisiana. Come on, guys, give him one more carry. He did score a rushing touchdown in his last 7 games, though, after coming up empty in week 1, hence why he is the national co-leader. But the most effective game, honestly, for South Alabama is actually the passing game, and that's why Carter Bradley coming back is a big deal. Slot receiver Colin Lacey leads the Sun Belt in receiving. He's the 2nd national leader in yards. Like, we're not used to talking about South Alabama having all these national leaders in offensive categories, but hey, here they are. Do note, though, that Lacey splits work, if you look at the body of work as a whole, with Jamal Pritchett. He's a 5'8" receiver, and I was like, why isn't he in the slot? No, he's a wideout at 5'8", speedy guy. He saw 18 targets last week, though. So there was a clear game plan. The man was getting open, so it is split a little bit. Lacey is the go-to on this offense. Troy, they're also top 15 in EPA against the pass. Their only 2 losses on the season are Kansas State and James Madison. That's not too bad. Their strength of record splits, I do have to point this out, because when you do look at teams that may be close to being even, under within a score, under 1 touchdown, I like to look at their strength of record, strength of schedule. A little bit of a disparity here. Troy is 42nd according to ESPN's FPI, and South Alabama is 91st. So Troy's proven themselves much more. I'm sure your resume rankings would back that up as well. Troy has been completely unable to run the football, contrary to last year. They were one of the better rushing football teams, honestly, in the country, if not just the Sun Belt, but they've been unable to do it this year. They're 125th in rushing success rate. They just came off a game in which Texas State, whose defense is pretty good, but held them to just 37 rushing yards as a team. The offensive line, absolute disaster. That's where it starts and ends here, at their inability to run the ball. But this isn't last year's South Alabama's defense. They have regressed from 23rd nationally in points per drive allowed to 42nd. And again, that's against the 106 ranked strength of schedule, according to FPI. So it's not just a 19 spot drop back. You also have to take into account they're playing a much easier schedule than they did last year and still coming up a lot shorter.
Yeah, Brett, just real quick on the resumes, since you mentioned it, I do have Troy number 43, most deserving. South Alabama's number 58 in the most deserving.
Okay.
Significantly better than ESPN strength of record or even my record achievement because of the impact that the relative scoring margin has on this, where South Alabama does rank 44th in the country. So Troy the more deserving team, but South Alabama a little bit closer to them because of relative scoring margin and how I incorporate that. So I agree with you. This is a really good game out of the Sun Belt. It's got some big implications that I'm going to talk about. It's got a watchability score of 7.1. I have Troy -3, which is a 59% win expectancy for the Trojans. I'm very excited about this game, Brett. Control of the Sun Belt West is on the line. Currently, Troy has a 71% chance to win the division. South Alabama has just a 16% chance. A win for Troy, as my numbers project in this game, all but secures the title for the Trojans. However, if South Alabama wins, the race would be close and really could come down to the wire here, with South Alabama having that head-to-head, which could end up being the deciding factor at the end of the day. Overall, Troy's power rating of 3.8 and corresponding ranking of number 47 are both season bests. At number 77, this is the best the Troy offense has been ranked all season as well. But it's not as good as the South Alabama defense that ranks number 69 for me. It's the other side of the ball, though, that features the strength on strength in this game, as you mentioned, Brett. At number 21, the Troy defense is the best unit in this game, and it's the strongest opposing defense that the number 56 South Alabama offense will face all season. Troy is the slightly better team with the best unit in this game, and they have the home field advantage. All of that leads me to a bottom line of having Troy -3, 41% chance that South Alabama secures the upset win on the road and keeps this West race competitive into mid-November at least.
Yeah, Carter Bradley being back is really a difference for me, but the best number is long gone. +7 was out there. It's most certainly not now. So I'm not sure that that's where I'm looking, but the over-under didn't move very much, or it was at least a little bit slower to move. And in that case, Carter Bradley matters to both point spread and the point total. And so I think I'm looking over 45.5 points. That's my play on this one. Kind of difficult to say with a couple of ironclad defenses. But again, that's just a systemic play in that the starting quarterback comes back, point spread moves, point total doesn't. Over for me. I did. So we're not going to talk about Duke Wake Forest. That's the one we left out. I'm sorry. I found it the least interesting of the group. But do note, just a quick programming note for the Duke Blue Devils. Don't treat them like they're at full strength until Riley Leonard returns. We talked about it last week. They scored 0 points against Louisville, and I tried to warn you. So hey, don't be betting on them. Don't be laying any points with them until Riley Leonard's back. Okay, moving forward, we have staying in the ACC. Boston College on the road at Syracuse. The Orange are 2.5-point home favorites. That has moved down through 3, do note. And this game carries an over-under 51.5 or 51 points, 51.5 in some spots. This game kicks off Friday night at 7:30 p.m. Eastern on ESPN2, and we are playing it in the vaunted JMA Wireless Dome, the artist formerly known as the Carrier Dome. I don't think that one really applies here because this isn't Clemson or Florida State or Miami coming to town, though. But I'm just not sure how many more times we're going to get to talk about a Syracuse home game left on the schedule. And guys, don't look now, but Boston College, they've won 4 games in a row. Not bad. They're 4-4 now, I think, or potentially even 5-3. Not bad for a team that was like kicked to the curb and left for absolute dead. Quarterback Thomas Castellanos, he left last game, but he did return. That is important. He returned and he played fine. It was just a tweak to something, and he got taped up and back in. He's been pretty decent this season for Boston College, but if I had to pick a bone with him, he has too many turnovers, too many turnover-worthy throws. His receivers haven't helped him. 20 drops this season. That is not great. But they are improving week over week. They had 11 in the first couple of games, and then it's been about 2, 3, 1 every game since then. I do believe, though, that he is really missing wide receiver Ryan O'Keefe. He suffered a scary neck injury a few weeks back, was rushed to the hospital. He's okay, okay enough, but he's not playing. He's still week to week. Running back Pat Garwo is also TBD to play. So the couple of big players here, questionable, at least banged up. Even you kind of have to treat Castellanos like he's banged up as well. He is a very good rusher as well, and Syracuse struggles with mobile quarterbacks, like we mentioned last week. In fact, they just struggle against the run, period. You can line it up, run it straight at them, and there's not much they can do about it. They do have a mobile quarterback of their own, though, Garrett Schrader. He was sacked 7 times last week, and that resulted in Syracuse rushing 25 times for exactly 0.0 yards in a ugly loss against Virginia Tech. Kelly, I'm worried about this team. They are not headed in the right direction. I thought maybe it was an excuse because they played a bunch of top-tier teams in the ACC back-to-back-to-back. Maybe they're beat up, but they just got shredded by Virginia Tech, and that's not something you really want to say. Boston College, in their own right, they're pretty middling against the run, 76th in success rate allowed on the ground. But they do also allow mobile quarterbacks to pick up yards. They gave up 150 yards to Haynes King, who, by my accounts, I would not call a standard dual-threat quarterback, but he can make plays with his legs when he needs to, as highlighted by his 150 yards on the ground. I also want to know, is Garrett Schrader hurt? Someone more familiar with Syracuse football, please let me know. He's had 7 total rush attempts in the last 2 games. He fumbles a lot, so maybe it's that, but I saw him rush for 200 yards against Purdue. Come on. Like, why is he not at least attempting more? That to me says he's either hurt or the coaching staff doesn't trust him. What do your numbers say about this game?
Brett, my numbers say a lot about this game. As people know by now, I don't bet any college football games or any sporting event if it's a sport that the NCAA sponsors due to my day job. But even if I did, I wouldn't touch this game. Like, on either way, on anything, I really don't know. These are 2 teams, I'm going to get into it, who it's been hard to really get a grasp on where are they currently. This game has a watchability score of 6.0. I have Syracuse. Actually, Brett, and it kind of makes me sick to say, I have Syracuse -7 in this game by the model. It's a 69% win expectancy for the Orange. But here's my issue with all of it. Syracuse started the season 4-0. They rose to as high as number 22 in both the power ratings and the most deserving rankings, actually, in different weeks. But that was their high water mark. The Orange have now lost, as you mentioned, Brett, 4 in a row. Their power rating of 1.0 and corresponding ranking of number 60 are both season lows now. Both units are currently ranked season lows as well, with the defense checking in at number 47, the offense at number 71. So we definitely have issues on the offensive side of the ball, as you pointed to. The model thinks that this is the week Syracuse gets their season back on track, though. But I actually think that's mainly due to its view of Boston College. So Boston College at 5-3 riding a 4-game winning streak, as you mentioned. The Eagles are actually having a really good season relative to expectations here, despite the unexpected Week 1 loss to NIU. Like we didn't have high expectations.
They should be 6-2.
I know. Like, we didn't have high expectations coming in. They lose NIU, and I'm like, man, maybe it was even worse. Now they've kind of turned it around in that regard. So from a record standpoint, still not sold on the model. Boston College had the easiest projected schedule of any Power 5 team in the preseason. Because of that, they had a 47% chance to go bowling, despite being power rated just number 78 in the preseason. They're now power rated number 79, so actually one spot below where they were, but the Eagles' chances to go bowling are up to 80%. I mean, you're one game away. And you're like, okay, that's pretty good. But if you flip that around, that also means there's a 20% chance, that a 1 in 5 chance that Boston College closes the season with 4 straight losses. That's probably higher than you would expect for a team that's on a 4-game winning streak and just 1 win away from being bowl eligible. So again, this is like all sorts of conflicting signals here on both of these teams. Syracuse should have the advantage on both sides of the ball. This game is at home for the Orange. Bottom line, the model has Syracuse -7. And a 31% chance that Boston College punches their bowl ticket this week. But Brett, I really don't know. Like I rarely say I just have no idea. This is one of those games that I really have no idea. I'll be watching because I'm excited to see how it plays out, and it's a weeknight game here, so we can give it the full attention. But I don't know, man. I don't know.
Sadly, so I pulled up the ACC standings because I want to know, well, what happened if they didn't lose to NIU? It really wouldn't move them up all that far. Actually, I don't think it would move them up at all in the ACC standing. And I know it's non-con. I get that before people start angrily typing comments in there. Ooh, it doesn't matter. Yeah, no, it's fine. I'm just looking at their overall record. No, it wouldn't really move where they're at. Right now, they're 2-2 in the ACC. Squarely in the mix, though. They're a tick behind Miami and UNC. Georgia Tech currently, because they hold the tiebreaker over North Carolina, is 4th in the conference. And Virginia Tech, 3-1. They're 3rd in the conference. I want to talk about Virginia Tech soon because they're a team on the
they are
up and up, and I don't know that the market's really gotten a grasp on that. Either way, if this game was in Chestnut Hill and the line was the same, which it wouldn't be, but if it was the same, I'd pick Boston College to win outright. This is a team on the opposite trajectory of Syracuse, and at this point in the season, that to me is important. You got it. You can look at the season as a whole. I always worry about looking at season-long stats without context, because if you just look and say, well, okay, then Syracuse should be better, this is why at this point in the season you're going to start hearing me saying last 3, last 4, last 5 a lot more than season-long, because you need a snapshot of how these teams are playing today. They're not NFL franchises, and even NFL franchises are inconsistent throughout the year. But these college ones, especially when we're talking about ACC, Boston College, Syracuse types, I mean, you saw it last year with Syracuse. You see it this year with Syracuse. 2 different teams in September and the rest of the year. And you said that, they're just 1 win away from bowl eligibility, and that matters too. It's a lot of motivation there. However, my lone hesitation here is the recent strength of schedule. It's tough. Boston College is on the up and up, and Syracuse is on the way down. But look at this. At Boston College, the average power rank on their 4-game winning streak of their opponents, 97th by my aggregated power ratings. Syracuse, 29th. And the only thing dragging down that 29 is because Virginia Tech is still lagging in the model, and they're 62nd. But as I just pointed out, they're 3-1 in the ACC and 3rd. So I think that's actually like a quality loss. The way that they lost is not quality, but I don't think it's that bad an opponent. But yeah, I'm with you. I can't get behind a side on either of this because Boston College is beating a bunch of cupcakes and Syracuse lost to a bunch of good teams. But again, I do worry about trajectory. You won't catch me betting Syracuse in this one. All right, our last game on the schedule, we have Colorado State on the road at Wyoming. Kelly, I was disappointed. I was promised a snow game in Colorado State Air Force, and we did not get that snow game. It looked actually kind of like when Maction fired up the other night and there was no snow. They had shoveled it all off the field. Anyway, Wyoming, a 7-point home favorite in this one. The over-under set at just 42 points. This game kicks off Friday night at 8 p.m. Eastern on CBS Sports Network. Kelly, we're gonna do a little bit of a history lesson. Those that have listened to us know I love college football lore. I love college football history. And if it doesn't have anything to do with betting, you can go ahead and scrub forward if you're not interested. But I love this kind of stuff. This is a big-time rivalry game. It is the Border War. How did they secure that name besides anybody else? They play for the Bronze Boot, Wyoming has 50 wins over Colorado State. That is more wins than they have against any other team in the country. And this is the 115th edition of the Border War. Their first meeting came back in 1899, where Colorado Agricultural is the name of the school. Then they won via a forfeit. That is the way that this kicked off. But it was under interesting circumstances because of a disagreement between referees or officials from the two schools, and the refs used to be provided by the schools, which is hilarious by my estimation. Now, Wyoming said, nope, we're not playing this game. Colorado State, you're cheating. Your official isn't being fair. And then Colorado State started to walk off the field, and as they did, Wyoming ran in a touchdown. Colorado State later demanded a written apology from Wyoming. Not clear if they got one, but they played ever since. I think that is an awesome start to this rivalry. I went down such a rabbit hole to find all this stuff. So there you go. Also, one more useless dumb fact before we actually get into the breaking down of this game. This is the third tallest combination of schools we can have in the FBS. Wyoming, of course, highest elevation in FBS, and they're hosting. Colorado State is fourth. So if you're looking at a elevation thing, there's no elevation advantage for Wyoming in this one. Okay. It's going to be windy. Sustained winds over 20 miles an hour. Those that are familiar with Laramie, Wyoming, that's not surprising. They're going to be higher gusts, but the wind is looking like it's going to die down in the second half. So I'm either looking at first half under, which I can only see 20.5. I don't love that because it is under the 21, or maybe a second half over if you can live bet that at halftime. If the wind was really affecting the game in the first half, if it wasn't, careful. But if it was, keep an eye on the forecast, see if it's dying down. Maybe a play to the over in the second half live might be the way to go here. Wyoming individually, what the heck happened last week? 125 yards from scrimmage. Whoops, I know Boise State is decent, but they're not playing all that well. They're only 4-4. 125 yards from scrimmage is unacceptable. 23% success rate, one explosive play. That is a bad offensive outing for the Cowboys. A loss for Colorado State here gives them absolutely no error in their final three games. They have San Diego State, Nevada, and at Hawaii. Games 9, 10, and 11 in a row for them. That's worrisome. And actually so much worrisome that even in game 8 in a row, I worry about Colorado State just flat out running out of gas, both in this game and just in general. They had a couple of shootouts with Colorado, of course, emotionally charged game. They had a shootout with Middle Tennessee. They blew a 17-0 first quarter lead against Utah State, had a Hail Mary against Boise State, and then they've lost their last two. Their bye week was in week 2. Whoever scheduled that one, Colorado State didn't play in week 0. Whoever scheduled that week 2 bye, not great, guys. The two questions that I have, though, just in general for this game, does Wyoming have anybody that can defend receiver Torrey Horton, one of the best receivers in the entire country? And does Colorado State have anyone besides Torrey Horton to go to should Wyoming find a counter?
I don't have answers to those two questions, Brett. We're going to find out during the game, but I do have comments to your opening remarks, which, by the way, I absolutely love the college football history and what you're bringing to the table in that regard. For me, okay, I hear border war. I think Kansas, Missouri. Like, that's where my head goes.
Same thing. Yeah.
And I know they tried to change the name to that to Border Showdown or something, and it's like trying to change the Red River Shootout. Like, just don't. It's the Border War. I get it. Let's roll with it. And then you said the Bronze Boot. That got me thinking. I go, wait a minute. Arkansas LSU plays for a boot. That is the battle for the Golden Boot, as I looked it up here. I knew the trophy was a boot. I couldn't remember what it was called, the Golden Boot. So we've got a couple Border Wars. We've got a couple boots. I did not know that Colorado State and Wyoming were in this category, but I absolutely love it, Brett. That's why I love talking to you. You bring the history, and it's great. This game has a watchability score of 4.2, so maybe not on the same level as these other ones we've talked about on this episode. I have Wyoming -9. It's a 74% win expectancy for the Cowboys. At 2-2 in conference play, Wyoming still has a shot at the Mountain West championship game, but they'll likely need to win out because they've already lost a tiebreaker to both Air Force and Boise State. With the number 90 offense and a season worst number 75 defense, my numbers give Wyoming the edge on both sides of the ball in this one. Plus, it's in Laramie, which, as you mentioned, is good home field advantage. Cowboys are 5-0 at home this season, including a really good win to open the year. So the model has been dialed in on Colorado State this season. The Rams had a 35% chance to go bowling in the preseason. It's now 39%. An upset win here could be huge to avoiding the pressure of needing to finish 3-0 to reach that 6-win mark. Bottom line, I have Wyoming -9, 26% chance that Colorado State wins in Laramie, something no visiting team has been able to do in 2023, Brett.
I had to look it up just because, yeah, you're right. There's a lot of similarities in this rivalry to other ones. Kansas, Missouri does get the nod for Border War. They did start first in 1891, but they do predate, Colorado State, Wyoming predates LSU, Arkansas by 2 years.
Okay.
So,
okay.
Bronze boots theirs. Who stole it from who? Probably neither, because I don't know if they were aware of each other's rivalries at that point in time. Home field advantage. Colorado State running out of gas. That worries me. It's probably Wyoming at -7 or better for me in this game at home, even with the low total. Wheels have to fall off eventually. We see it all the time with these teams that play 11 games in a row, so I do worry about that. Hop on over to our Discord server where you can connect with over 4,000 sports betting fans and get live updates in the college football channel. There you can join a sharp and active community. You can even get some boots on the ground intel from me going to action games, so long as my service works in those stadiums, which it usually doesn't. But don't forget to subscribe to Lines YouTube for weekly college football odds and betting videos all season long, just like this one. And subscribe to us on your podcasting app of choice. Be sure to let us know down in the comments where you stand on each of these games. We've had a lot of opinions in there, a lot of people going back and forth. It's been awesome, so keep that up. Let us know if you agree, disagree, if you have any parting shots with what I bring to the table, or whether or not Kirby Smart plays to cover spreads, or whatever the latest dumb comment was. Anyway, and drop a good review on the show if you did like it. Kelly, before we close up shop here, please let everybody know where they can find your work.
You can find me on X at KFordRatings, the website KFordRatings.com, and of course over at thelines.com, doing a couple articles every single week on the best sport in the world, college football.
Well, thank you so much as always for watching. I'm Brett Gibbons. That's Kelley Ford. We'll see you all next time.